Alright, so in this video, I'm going to try to use Google Colab to take a spreadsheet and separate it to a lot of different spreadsheets using some values in a column. So to show you what I mean by that, let's just take a look here. This is my spreadsheet. See, there's quite a bit of information here. And basically what I want to do, I want to be able to create a separate spreadsheet for each salesperson. So basically we're going to have to take this and filter this to each one of these salespeople, and then take whatever's here and create a new spreadsheet and put it in this folder. So let me just turn this off. So that's pretty much what we're going to do, and we're going to use Google Colab to make this happen. So to do this, I have my spreadsheet, I have an empty folder in my Google Drive, and then I have Google Colab, which is at collab.research.google.com. So let's start by creating a new notebook, and I'm going to name this. And the first thing we need to do, we need to be able to read this particular spreadsheet. So we should have a code example here. I'm going to open this left panel, click on this code, and let's just search Google Sheets and see we have importing data from Google Sheets. So I'm going to click on this arrow. That's going to put this code in here. So I'm going to run this first line to run the installation. And that's done. Let's close this to get this out of the way. So we have this. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to import this pandas higher up here so that we have all imports on top. I do need to keep this to have the spreadsheet in there. Let's just cut all of this stuff below and create another code block and paste it in here. And for now, I'm just going to run this much. And this should basically import everything we're going to need, and at the same time just get us the permissions we need for this to happen. So click on this link, copy the code, go back here, paste that in this box and hit enter, and that should take care of that. So at this point, I need to be able to read that spreadsheet we have on top there. So I'm going to change this to open by URL, and then I'll just go back to this and copy this link on top, go back to this and paste the link within this quotations, and I'm gonna remove this .sheet1, just keep it at that. So this will be the workbook, WB I'm gonna call it, instead of the worksheet. So inside of that workbook, we're gonna need to get that worksheet. And the name of that worksheet should be, well, in this case, it's sales data. So I'm going to copy that, hit escape, go back to this and paste that in this quotations. For now, I'm going to move all of this stuff below, cut that out, open another code block, paste it, and try to run this to see if I got this right so far. This we should save in a variable, WS. Seems fine so far. So at this point, if this is our worksheet, we should be able to take that WS and get all the values within this rows. And then we need to be able to convert it to a data frame. So we'll do that by doing df equals 2. And then here we're going to pass rows minus the first row because of the headers, and then we also have to do the columns, and for that we'll just take the first row. So I'm going to run this. All of this I explain in detail in my first Google Colab video if you want more details about it. So at this point, if I look at this df, which is our data frame, that should be that data from that particular worksheet from here. So if I take a look here, see we have about 4,202 rows, the first row being the headers, so we should have 4,201 lines of data. So there it is, 4,201 rows. Good. So this allows us to get this into a data frame. Now with data frames, if we wanted to take this data frame and filter it to one of the salespeople instead of getting everybody, what I should be able to do, I should be able to do df and open this brackets. And then in this brackets, I can just go with that df column name. So I'm just gonna go like this, sales rep. So basically what I'm doing in here, I'm matching this column name that I'm filtering by, and I'm going in this square brackets. And I'm gonna do that, and I want that to be equal to, let's just do one of our salespeople, maybe perennial. All right, this should have been double equals, by the way, something like that. So let's just run this so you can see what's going on here. So you should be able to see how I was able to filter this to 242 rows. So this is the way we can filter our data frame to a particular value, which is right now perennial. And we should be able to do that to pretty much anybody in this list, right? So if I grab Jerry Jefferson and just pass that in here and run this, we should be able to see we filtered this to just Jerry Jefferson, and that's the number of rows for that. So now our goal is to be able to do this for everybody in that list. So I'm just gonna leave this for a second over here. We'll come back to this line. Let's just open another block here. And what we need to do, we need to get a nice clean list of salespeople. So to be able to do that, we're gonna take that column from this data frame, that sales rep column, and that should be a series in here. So because of that, we should be able to remove duplicates out of it. Now, autocomplete doesn't show up here, but it should show up if I just save this in a variable. So I'm just gonna do something like sales reps series equals to this. And if I run this, now if I go to another code block, I should be able to do that dot, and we should be able to see the methods, one of which should be to drop our duplicates from that. So right now, if I just run this so you can see what it looks like, see we get a nice clean list of our salespeople with no duplicates. And we should be able to just convert this to a regular Python list by doing toList on top of this. So if I run this again, see, this is a nice Python list, comma separated, just like that. So I'm just gonna name this unique salespeople. So at this point, we should be able to refer to this unique salespeople to get a nice clean list of our unique salespeople. And the reason I need this is because now I should be able to loop through this list of unique salespeople. And as I'm looping through it, I should be able to filter to the right person and do whatever it is that I need to do using that list. So we should be able to do something like for sales rep in this list. And here in this loop, if I just print that sales rep and run this, see, it basically prints the list of all the salespeople. So I'm gonna keep this for loop at this. Again, I'm gonna come back to this in just a second. So what we need to do within that loop as we're looping through that and getting that list, we need to be able to take that list and basically create a new file out of it and put it in this Google Drive folder. And to do that, we need to basically just create a function that will handle this for one case. And once we get that, after that, we'll take that function and apply it to all cases. So first, what we're gonna do, we're gonna refer to this GC, which is how we're basically getting to our Google client and doing things with our spreadsheets or Google Drive or something like that. So I'm gonna go here and do GC dot. And as you can see, one of the methods here should be create. So that should allow us to create a whole new spreadsheet. And as you can see, arguments it's asking us for is the title and the folder ID where that spreadsheet should go. So for example, if I just do my new sheet and basically just do the folder ID as a second argument in quotes right here. Let's just go get that ID of this folder. I'm gonna copy the link, go back to this and paste that in this quotations. We just need the ID. So I'm gonna remove this part in front, just leave the ID of this. So if I just run this, so you can see what happens. See, it did something. Now let's go to the Google Drive and see what happened. As you can see, I was able to create a new spreadsheet with that name, My New Sheet. And if I double click on this, it's basically like an empty new spreadsheet. The first worksheet called Sheet 1. I'm going to close this and delete this. So this allows us to create a whole new spreadsheet, this line. Now, this returns a spreadsheet itself. So we should be able to say SS equals to whatever this is. So at that point, SS would be that new spreadsheet. So we should be able to then take that SS and do some things with that particular variable. To be able to see what we can do with that variable, we should basically just take a spreadsheet like this. WB is a spreadsheet, so using that autocomplete, we should be able to figure this out. So I'm going to do WB. See, all of these methods should be available on that SS as well. So if I just look through here, let's see if we can rename the worksheet itself to give it some name, that first worksheet. So we should be able to get to that first worksheet by doing something like sheet 1. That should give us the first worksheet. So let's just put that in here and put that in a variable. I'm going to call it NWS for new worksheet. And at this point, this NWS should be a worksheet. Now, again, to see what's available on a worksheet, we can take this WS and see what's available on that. And that's the same worksheet at this point. So let's see how we can rename that worksheet if it's possible. I'm going to assume that was that title, and there's also update title. Update title renames the worksheet. Okay, that's excellent. So we need to just do this and provide a new title. So we should be able to just grab this, put this in here, and just give it a name, whatever we want. So for example, if we want this to be called Jerry Jefferson as the worksheet name, we'll just place it in here, and that should create the worksheet, and it should also rename that worksheet to that name. Now, once we create the worksheet, then we need to basically put the data in that worksheet. So the data is going to be coming from this filter. So let's just move this filter line right above this. So this line is going to filter this to Jerry Jefferson. So let's just save this in a variable. That's going to be the new data frame filtered to just Jerry Jefferson. I'll just call it NDF for new data frame. So what we need to do within that data frame, we need to basically convert it to a list of lists so that we can write it to this new worksheet. So to do that, let's actually do it right below this. So we'll just say that's NDF, meaning the new data frame. Let's do N list for new list, and let's just convert that NDF to a list. And we can do that by taking the first row for columns. So we'll just do ndf.columns.toList, and we'll put that in an array structure. Again, all of this I have covered in previous videos in detail, and we're going to put the rest of the data right below, and we'll do it by doing that ndf.toNumpy. I'm not sure what it's called, so let me just take a look at this df and see what the method is called. See, that's to_Numpy. And then .toList to convert it to a Python list. So by doing this, I should be able to create a regular Python list in this N list, which is what we need to be able to write to that particular spreadsheet. Let me get rid of this. So now I'm going to go back here and try to write to this NWS. And to know how that's going to work, I'm going to use this WS worksheet to see what the method is called, and it should be called update. And here we should be passing the starting point where we start to write the data. And the second one should be the list, I believe we're passing to it. So end list. And finally, there is the method, how we're going to be writing that data. But for now, I'm not going to do that. So let's just change this to NWS. So at this point, I want to just test this to make sure that I'm able to create a filtered list, create a new spreadsheet, give it a name Jerry Jefferson, and maybe to that spreadsheet we will also give a name Jerry Jefferson too, right here. And then write to that worksheet. So if all of this works, then we'll continue building on this. But for now, let's just make sure we test this so far and see what happens. Let's go check what happened. So if I go to that drive, see I have a new file here, Jerry Jefferson. If I open this, I have the data for Jerry Jefferson. Now, the only thing I want to do here, I want to change the way I wrote to this. See how these are aligned to the left? That's because these are not dates now. These are text, and these are not amounts. These are text too. So we should be able to fix that by changing, let me just remove this. By changing this update and adding another argument to this function. So the argument we're looking for is called, I don't remember what it's called, so I'm going to have to find out. Here's their docs. I'm going to go to API reference, and let's try to find that update method. Seems like this is it. So let's see. Value input option. So we need to do this user entered as the option to take care of this. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back to this and do another argument right here. I'm going to do value input option equals to user entered right here. So there shouldn't be any files here because I deleted it. I'm going to run this again to see if that takes care of that. So that ran, no problem. Let's go take a look. That's Jerry Jefferson. Let's open this. See, everything aligned to the right. That seems to be good. We have our values. Okay, so we created one block of code that can actually create an individual spreadsheet, give it a proper name, rename the worksheet, and put the data in there. So now we're going to take that and convert it to a function that we can reuse in many different cases. So I'm going to do a function, def, and give this function a name. And we'll just tab all of this in to make it a part of this function. Now, what this function is going to accept, it needs to accept this argument, the name of the salesperson. So we'll just call it sales rep as the argument. And then I'm going to take that and put that right in here instead of this Jerry Jefferson, then instead of this Jerry Jefferson, and then again instead of this Jerry Jefferson. So all of that should now create a function like this that can accept a salesperson's name. And using that, we should be able to just create a worksheet with that person's name. So if I just run this to have that function in the memory, I should be able to create another block of code right below. And now if I just take this function and run it with somebody's name in it. So let's just test this. Let's just grab this person right in here. So if I run this, hopefully if this goes well, we should create another spreadsheet here with that person's name and that person's information. And if I go back and take a look, see, there it is. If I open this, that's the data for that person and the worksheet is renamed. Very nice. So that does what it's supposed to do. I'm going to remove this. So finally, we are very close to finishing this. So what we're going to do, instead of just running just one of these, we're gonna run it for everybody. And if you remember, we created this loop, which I'm gonna move below this function now. Let's just delete this. In this loop, we are basically looping through all the salespeople, and every time it gives us one of our salespeople, which is called sales rep. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna run that function just inside of this loop with that sales rep as the argument. That's gonna be that salesperson. So this way we should be able to loop through this and create all of these spreadsheets, hopefully with the proper data. Let's try this and see what happens. So let's just take a look at our Google Drive as this is working on this. See, new worksheets are coming up. All right, seems like it's done. It took a little bit of time, but seems like we're good to go. Let's go check what happened with our spreadsheets. As you can see, we have a folder full of files right now, and each one should be one of the salespeople with their information in here. Let's just take a look at the last one too. Looks good. That should do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.